These men, Max Blank and Isaac Harris, did on the night of March 25th, 1911, we think, through negligence killed the 146 women on the ninth floor of that fateful night. We want to know,
are they guilty of manslaughter?
yes. How did the fire start? When did the fire start? And who started the fire? Do we know? Find out on the next episode of I, Industrial Injustice. This is the Ash Building. It's one of the newest fireproof buildings. Apparently not so fireproof. The 8th, 9th, and 10th floors were owned by Isaac Harris and Max Blank. These women worked under them. Now, these men and this building could have played a key role. So let's see what Detective Higgs has to say about them.
Okay, so thank you, Watson. Harris and Blank were both the executives of the building, and when those women died because of the fire, a lot of people blamed them. Because in the building, as you will see later in the video, in the building, the working conditions weren't up to code like they should have been. And they were bound to make a lot of money from this. In fact, about like a year before the fire, they had a strike because of the working conditions. You have to also remember that it's 1911, and the Industrial Revolution was just taking the upturn of the boom, and so of course everyone's trying to get used to the working conditions, and bosses are overworking. Of course, you have those nice bosses, but Harris and Blank were not nice. Greed was all they cared about. Back to you, Watson.
The fire started about 4:44. It's almost clean. When the firefighters arrived, it was almost 5 o'clock. And they didn't have enough water pressure to get past the 6th floor. This is the tallest ladder in New York, which only reached to the 6th floor. Traffic, it was 3 ladders too short, 3 stories too short to reach the fire. People started jumping, and the working conditions were so bad. I mean, it was horrendous. The fire escape collapsed. This is not building code. This was it after the fire. I mean, it was just terrible. Here's Mrs. Holmes, who can tell you all about the working conditions in the building.
Thank you. And so before I begin, I need to tell you some laws that the factory was breaking. The first one is that they only had 2 staircases, and the building was so tall that they needed at least 3 staircases to be able to get to and from the floor. And the second one is that the door was locked, and of course they're not allowed to do that. That's breaking the law. And the last one was the fire escape. As you know, the fire escape was not usable. It was rusty and old, and it collapsed, and it was just bad. Okay, so number 1 is the fire escape that was rusty and old, and it just collapsed. So the workers could not escape from there. Number 2 was the cluttered workspaces, and it was very messy, and people would trip over things. It just wasn't good. Number 3 was the very, very long tables, and they were an obstacle to get to like the doors and stuff. They prevented that, of course. And so, moving on. Number 4 was the wicker baskets full of scraps, which, you know, is very, very, very flammable. It's kind of obvious. Number 5 was the oily floors, which really spread the fire quickly. So, number 6 was the pails of water. They did not have a sprinkler system built in in case of a fire, so they would get buckets of water and just pour it on there. Number 7 was the barrel of oil, and it was in the factory, and as you know, as I already told you, oil is very, very flammable. And lastly, number 8, there was boxes crowding the exit. So the second exit that wasn't locked, they couldn't get out of it because it was so covered and like it was hard to get out.
March 25th, 1911. At approximately 5 o'clock, the fire begins. We think it might have begun with a match or a cigarette thrown into the wastebasket. At 5:03, the fire department arrived. They discovered that they did not have the necessary equipment to deal with it and started telling the people to just jump and that they would catch them. At 5:05, the fire gets worse and people actually start to do it. We find out that the firemen cannot catch people jumping off ninth-story buildings. So, at 5:07, the fire escape collapses, killing many. At 5:18, the fire is burned out, and there were 146 people dead. So, now we have the aftermath. The IOGWU organized a funeral procession. It's one of the best attended funerals in history. And then Blank and Harris trial began on December 4th of 1911. They were not in the end found guilty. In fact, they received money and favors in exchange. But in 1912, the NYS passes 8 new bills on safety and law. And then in 1961 is the 50th anniversary of the fire. Now, what it doesn't say on the timeline is between 1912 and 1961, Blank and Harris were caught locking doors again. And they were not heavily fined. They were a little bit fined. But we can give you the roundabout evidence and our verdict. Are they guilty?
Okay, so as she said, they were paid after the trial. They were paid $400 per person that died, which is a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And as she also said, they were caught locking doors again, same working conditions, and they weren't arrested or anything, which is really, really wrong. So the question everyone is wondering is, are they guilty of manslaughter?
We think
yes. Based on the evidence, they had time to escape the building. When they were told, they left. They didn't warn anybody like they could have. They left. And they locked the doors. That was their fault, and they did it again. They earned money for it. They paid off some of the richest lawyers to do their case, which is ridiculous. I mean, if they weren't guilty, then why would they waste a lot of their profit? And so your opinion is your opinion, but based on our evidence, we do believe that he is guilty.
Guilty.
As she said. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. See us next time on I, Industrial Injustice.